Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Paul.
And we're going to challenge you to transform your financial future through the principles of the most profitable business in the world, banking.
We believe everyone should be involved in two businesses, the business that you're in and the banking business. Everyday people can replicate what bankers have been doing for centuries to leverage capital and build wealth through private lending.
Join us as we uncover the truths about money, expose lies and myths, and flip conventional financial advice on its head. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wealth Warehouse Podcast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Paul.
And we are going to be your co-host on this podcast. So what is this? What are we all about? So the Wealth Warehouse Podcast, we created this to discuss, explain, coach, instruct everything about the infinite banking concept. So the infinite banking concept, you may or may not have heard about it, developed by Nelson Nash. Wrote a book called Becoming Your Own Banker back in 2000. We highly recommend you read that book as a great place to start your educational journey with this. But what are we going to learn about? We're going to learn about the basics and the fundamentals of banking. Banking is a process. And we're going to explain how if you can overtake that process in your own life and create and control the banking function in your own life, what that can do for you, for not just you, but for generations to come. So we will focus predominantly on the infinite banking concept, setting up that foundation in your life through specially designed dividend-paying whole life insurance contracts, and then utilizing that as the foundation upon which we built everything else in our lives financially, from private lending to syndication investing to purchasing vehicles to buying businesses, starting businesses, building businesses, everything like that. So welcome to the first episode, and we'll get into it. So Paul, hey, we're finally doing it. You and I have been friends for years now, and we've been in this business for several years, and we talk all the time. So we figured, let's just start recording this, put it out for the masses, so we can instruct, we can coach, we can teach, educate people on their financial journey. So, Paul, why don't you start off? We'll both kind of give our backgrounds when it comes to infinite banking and how we got started and what kind of role it's played in our lives. So I'll let you start us off there.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm glad we started this, Dave. And I'm going to try to neck this down into maybe 60 seconds or maybe 2 minutes or less, because I could talk about this, and we do talk about this all the time, and we talk about it a lot. So I found out about the infinite banking concept through you, Dave. Several years ago, you sent me a book about it with no context, just out of the blue. You asked me my address and sent me a book. And I tell you, it immediately resonated with me. It immediately alerted me that there was a financial product out there that I'd been searching for, that could bridge the gap between, investing and saving. So I took I took massive action, right? I don't know if we want to get into it, but I totally changed my financial outlook and what I was doing as far as college savings, as far as retirement savings, retirement planning. And now things are just much different, and I'm on a way better trajectory than I otherwise would have been doing the typical retirement planning or retirement savings. So again, life-changing, game changer. We're going to get into all of it, but I don't want to give too much away. But I tell you what, the infinite banking concept, the process, and the product through which we practice it is now my top asset.
Yeah, I've heard you say that many times. It's your favorite asset. So, and I would agree. So thanks for that short background, Paul. So you and I met sitting next to each other in Afghanistan in 2013. We both have military backgrounds, and we'll get into that more as the shows go on, I'm sure. But I've been practicing infinite banking since 2010. Somebody brought it to me 12 years ago, and I read the book, had a lot of conversations about it, and I said, I want to start doing this. I didn't truly understand the power of what I had created until 2016, when I decided to get into real estate investing, and I flipped my first house. And that's the first time I actually got to utilize my infinite banking policy as my own personal bank. And seeing that in action really started my mind going with what are all the possibilities of using this. I've used it as a savings account up until now, but now I can put it into action for investing, and what else, so my mind really started working. That's really when my financial world started to expand and the aperture widened, and I started seeing opportunities I never would have ever realized before, had I not created this banking structure that I own and controlled in my own life. So yeah, getting you involved, that was awesome. I got into this business over 3 years ago, created a business around it because I was telling so many people about it that I figured, why don't I just create a business so I can tell more people? You happen to be one of the very first people I reached out to talk to about this, and you caught on immediately, started putting a lot of your savings and redirecting a lot of your money into a series of policies, just like I did. And lo and behold, soon thereafter, you decided you were going to create a business around this too, because you were telling everybody and sending them to me. So you've been doing this not full time. I'm doing it full time right now. You're killing it. You're helping a lot of people, impacting a lot of lives as still a full-time Army officer. So pretty cool, pretty awesome what I think we've been able to accomplish in the short time we've really been pushing this hard as a real business. But the lives, hundreds of lives impacted already, and many more to come. So we're very excited about this. So Paul, why don't you tell people, why should people listen to us? There's a lot of different mediums out there talking about infinite banking. You can learn about it by Googling whatever you want to do. There's several great podcasts already in existence that discuss this topic. And we highly recommend people search those as well. But why would people want to listen to us, and what kind of credibility do we have in this realm?
Sure. Well, like you said, there's a ton of people talking about this on the interwebs. Obviously, we have our favorite podcast about IBC that we've listened to over the years and have helped us grow and helped us learn. But what we're going to offer here, folks, is absolute clarity, really down at the lowest level. Right? We're gonna explain to you what it means to become an infinite banker. David and I are both authorized infinite banking practitioners with the Nelson Nash Institute. So if you're wondering what that is, you can go to infinitebanking.org and you can look up our names there and read a little bit about us. But to become part of that institution, we had to go through a serious curriculum. Within 90 days, we had to finish it, start to finish, 90 days, take a 120 question proctored exam, which Dave apparently got like the highest grade ever on.
Second highest, apparently.
Or second highest.
No big deal. No big deal.
No big deal. But I tell you, that course alone, you'll learn a bunch of stuff, not only about infinite banking, but Austrian economics, kind of really defining the problem, that that average American is facing financially, not to mention the most recent gouge of inflation that we've seen with rising prices and, the Fed flooding the economy with money. But yeah, so we're authorized practitioners. You've been practicing infinite banking in your own personal life since for a decade or more now. I practice it. Tammy and I practice it in our lives. Yeah, since late 2018, early 2019. So, and I think you're going to talk about this too, but we're practicing what we preach, right? In order to become an infinite banker, you have to realize that, one, you're going to have to redirect your savings to another place. And we'll talk about that. Dave mentioned, whole life insurance, and there are very specially designed whole life insurance policies that we practice the infinite banking concept with. So we're going to get into all that stuff. But I think you want people that are doing it. You want people that are trained to teach infinite banking and that use it in their own lives. And that's what I looked for in you. And I think that's what other people are going to find in us. And kind of be able to sift through the noise that's out there online and come to the source. And that's what we can offer, I think.
Absolutely. So in short, we practice what we preach. We've been using this as the foundation for our investing and private lending and everything else. And many of our clients do the exact same thing now. They started with zero knowledge of it, and now they're prolific private lenders. So it's really exciting stuff. We always recommend if you're going to learn anything from anybody, make sure that they do it themselves, that they're practicing what they preach. So that's what you're going to hear from us. We'll have some case studies, bring in some clients, bring in some people who can really show how to leverage this asset with anything else in your life. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this is the last thing that's on people's mind. They're like, often I think people are going to be confused about, what do you mean? What do you mean banking? Well, banking is a process, right? It's a function in your life, and someone or some entity, your bank, is controlling that function. So we're going to talk about all that, how you create this banking system through a very specially designed dividend paying whole life insurance contract so that you can practice the infinite banking concept. This podcast, what we're going to talk about is going to go against the grain. It's not going to be something your Uncle Bob agrees with. I always say Uncle Bob. I don't know why.
Everybody's got one.
But your Uncle Bob's going to tell you that what we're talking about is not a good idea because his financial advisor says it's not a good idea. So I guess I'm kind of getting into who's not going to listen to us, but maybe they should. If you're a huge financial entertainer guy, and I'll just one of the more famous ones is Dave Ramsey, who we agree with on a lot of things. Live within your means and
save, have the discipline, all that.
Save, have discipline. Yeah,
term.
Absolutely. Those are great messages. Yeah. So I think we all want the same outcomes, but our path to that outcome is just going to be different. And it's going to be built on more solid foundation, some bedrock principles, guarantees. Doesn't mean it's not going to be a this or that strategy. And I think, Dave, that's one of the things that people often confuse with whole life insurance. They think it's a this choice. I can only do this with my money, or I can do this. And what we're going to teach you and what we're going to tell you about is you can do both. You can do both very profitably, very safely, and quite easily. So I think, if I could sum it up, we're going to go against the grain, against conventional wisdom here.
Yep, we're gonna bring up a lot of conventional wisdom and flip it on its head and question it. I think one of the key ingredients to becoming your own banker and following this kind of philosophy is questioning everything. Question motives, question intent, question all the risks involved. A lot of people talk about risks, but when was the last time they ever talk to their stockbroker, their financial planner about, well, what's the risk? What could go wrong that would completely derail my plan, right? And that's something people certainly need to look at. Risk is huge, and one of the biggest fallacies out there is that you have to take high risk for high reward. That's one of those conventional wisdoms that we're going to flip upside down and show you that is something that people with an agenda tell you so that you put more money in and take higher risk. You don't need to do that. But yeah, so what is infinite banking? I think you explained a lot of it, and I think we would both agree that probably the core principle of infinite banking revolves around controlling your own financial system. Absolutely. And your ecosystem, as I like to say. I don't care what's going on in the economy. I don't care what's going on at the federal level. They're going to change laws every single year. They're going to screw up the tax code or make changes that completely derail people's plans, even late in the game. But
stretch IRA.
Right. Yeah. Backdoor Roths, like all this stuff that they want to take away that people have been planning on forever. But that's stuff that can derail your plan, right? We want to focus on putting something in place that your ecosystem is not affected by those outside influences, or at least heavily protected to mitigate against those influences, which is what we do. I mean, it's what bankers do. Bankers don't take risk. Bankers take collateral. Bankers take guarantees. And that's what we look at, and we'll get into that in future podcasts about our private lending and how we take collateral, how we take guarantees, how we ensure the upside and mitigate or eliminate the downside, right? And it's all very possible because we didn't know any of this 5 years ago.
Well, for me, less time, really. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I started infinite banking. I started my policies in 2010, but I didn't start using them for anything banking wise until 2016. So it's only been 5-6 years for me that I've utilized it and seen the power. But like you said, the difference between where we were just a few years ago to where we are now we're two different people financially on that financial level. So it's exciting
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, everybody. We're going to take you through. We're going to cover a lot of ground in this podcast, from just the simple mechanics of infinite banking, how to get started. What are we trying to get at? What are we trying to do? What are some of you mentioned this, Dave, but what are some of we're going to flip some things on their head, right? Some fallacies out there. There's a lot of what Nelson used to call the noise. There's a lot of financial noise, and it's all over the interwebs now. You can find it there's plenty of noise about infinite banking on YouTube. There's some good content as well. And obviously, this podcast is going to be the one that I want you to go to, but there are a couple good other podcasts on infinite banking as well. However, you have to be able to sift through the noise. So we're going to give you the truth here. We're going to talk very plainly, very simply about how you can get started in infinite banking, and the principles and who this strategy is for, who this concept is for. Frankly, I think it's for anybody. Anyone can learn to become their own banker. You just have to be willing to read a little bit, to learn about this concept, and to trust, and learn those foundational principles.
Exactly. It takes two things. What I tell people, because they ask, is this for me? Well, you tell me, are you willing to learn and educate yourself and become your own banker, or do you want to be spoon-fed everything? If you're willing to learn, and then if you have the discipline to save and spend less than you make, right? Because I don't care what anybody tells you, there's no financial plan out there that you can succeed if you spend more than you make. So, have a desire to learn and a desire to save, and do it. Yep.
No, it's super, super simple. I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate infinite banking. They hear infinite banking, they might have a friend or someone that maybe have heard about it, but they think it's too complicated. I've actually heard a pretty prominent, real estate name out there say that I keep hearing about infinite banking, but nobody's been able to explain it to me to where it makes sense. And of course, I would direct that person, hey, you need to read Nelson's book, and then read his second book, read a couple other books on the subject, because listen to some podcasts. It's super easy.
Yeah. I mean, if that person really had a desire to understand it, then they would go do the research themselves, and not sit back and wait. But like you said, Paul, we do want people to listen to this podcast when it comes to infinite banking. But I think we would both encourage people, don't ever just listen to one person or one source of information. Nope. You need to go out there and you need to search and figure out why this one source of information is the truth, is the source that you're going to follow. Kind of like, I want my kids to read books about communism so they can recognize when they see what communism is and understand why that's a terrible system and a terrible idea and has killed more people than anything else in the world. Right. But if they don't ever know what that is or research what's not right, how are they really going to know what's true when it hits them in the face? So luckily, I think everybody coming in here has probably heard a lot of that stuff that we would say are fallacies or are conventional wisdoms that are completely wrong. So I don't think we're going to have a problem talking to anybody, because that's what's being marketed to us daily, many times a day through radio, TV, Instagram, Facebook. You get all the financial entertainers out there that are marketing all of this stuff to you. And guess what? They don't follow their own advice. That's not how they became wealthy.
Correct.
I challenge you, find one person who became wealthy to the point of the wealth that they have right now by putting their money in mutual funds and maxing out their 401k. It did not happen, right? But the difference between them and us, I think, Paul, one thing you and I do really well is we walk the talk. I would say if anybody ever tries to sell you anything, even an idea, ask them, do you do this too? If they say no, why would you ever listen to them? Like, we're only going to tell you
100%.
Yeah, we're only going to talk about things that we have done personally and that have worked well for us personally. We'll also talk about failures. I got plenty of them. And those failures are, taking lessons from that to learn why I'm doing it a different way now. So,
that's right.
Yeah. So who else would be
Absolutely.
a good fit for this podcast? Who's going to enjoy it and get something out of it?
Again, you said, people just like us, someone you want to, hang out and have a beer with, sit around the campfire. But, who is that person specifically? That's someone who's intellectually curious. It's someone who's willing to learn something new. It's somebody that, what I found, last year and this year as I've garnered more clientele, is that people are looking for something else other than the traditional, all right, max your 401k, do your IRA, have a little bit in savings, your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months or whatever.
Right.
Someone is looking for this other financial tool and they just don't know what it is. They want, when you look at the attributes, do you want it to be liquid? Yes. Do you want it to be guaranteed? Yes. Do you want control? All these things. Oh, by the way, it has a death benefit. They just don't know that this financial tool exists.
Yeah. And by the way, you're not going to lose any money if the market dips. Right?
That's right.
So they're
not affected by the market.
Not affected at all. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I also like real estate investors because they understand the need for leverage. They understand the need for capital. Business owners, of course, it doesn't matter the size, sole prop, or you can have, a large business. It doesn't matter. The capital for that business or the capital for your household, it's residing somewhere right now. It's likely in your business checking, your personal checking account or savings account, which pays nothing, right?
And
you could be keeping
risk.
it the same dollars. Oh, it's ridiculous, right? You could be keeping it here, right? So that's kind of people we're looking for. You just have to be curious. You just have to be willing to learn something new. And like I said before, you're going to get the truth here. You're not going to get, you're not going to get all unicorns and rainbows. It's going to be some straight talk. But we're not going to try to make infinite banking or dividend paying whole life insurance better than it is either, right? There's startup costs, right, Dave? Like it's not, oh, I can put this money in here and I'll have access to all of it in the first year. Well, that's not going to happen, right?
Right.
So
it's not the silver bullet that people are looking for. That one, the panacea, the silver bullet, the end all be all. Like this is not it. And guess what? Nothing is it. This is simply the foundation, the first place to put your money before you do anything else with it. That's it.
That's right. That's right. And I would say the last thing is that you have to be interested to do infinite banking, to become an infinite banker, to practice IBC in your life. You have to be someone who wants to, that can think generationally and that cares about the next generation. Or maybe if you don't have children, maybe there's a charitable organization that you really care about, that you want to leave a legacy for. But if you can think generationally and have intellectual curiosity and be willing to learn something new, that's who we're after. That is who will benefit from this podcast and who can literally, learn what Nelson was teaching in his 92-page book. And I tell you what, from a personal note here, it has changed my life. It has changed the trajectory of my financial life.
Yeah. And I would say just something that I've realized in the last year or two, just from our relationship, is it could just be one other person in your life that makes a gigantic difference in your mindset and your wealth. Between you and I, we've both made each other a lot of money, right? I mean, you loaned money to me.
Yeah.
I made money in my business and I paid you interest on that. So you made money there. You were a client of mine. Yep. You became a referral source. You brought opportunities to me because opportunities are coming out of the woodworks for both of us because people know that we have capital, right? So when we get
right.
phone calls from somebody who needs a loan for something that a bank will not give them a loan for, we're willing to look at that and take it on and bring in other people for that opportunity, just like you did recently, which is, I'm sure, one of the case studies that we'll discuss as these podcasts go on. But I like your point about generational wealth and legacy and all of that, which is certain. It's like another whole podcast series. We could probably do 10 episodes on that alone, and ways to structure up your estate so that money will never run out ever for your family and your generations to come. Your grandkids can build a statue to you in the garden of your estate, and every year they can come toast to the statue of Grandpa Paul, something like that. I think it's pretty cool to think about that. But the biggest need in our life is not death benefit. The biggest need in our life is financing while you're alive.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the great thing about this is it solves the financing need while you're alive, and it solves the indemnity or the taking care of your family after you're gone. So there's so much we can get into.
That's an important point. That's an important point, Dave. I think this is one of those things. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too with this asset, with this properly structured dividend paying whole life. And there's some trade-off in the beginning maybe, but over the long term, there's zero trade-off.
Right.
Zero. And I think that's the truth, right? Like I look forward to paying my premium every year on the 6 different infinite banking policies that I own.
Yep.
Right. I look forward to it every year. And that's a total change where I was 5 years ago when I was just with my old policies that I looked at as a liability, just money that was leaving my personal economy forever. And that I would just never see it again, but I'd leave a little bit of a legacy to my kids. I never thought about using whole life for financing my needs of life ever. And why would I?
Yep.
Right. So I tell you, I'm pretty excited. It's gonna be great. We're gonna be all over the place. There's so much to talk about, and I've been thinking about this. IBC touches everything. It touches everything. It touches the next generation. It touches the generation after that. It touches you now. It touches that purchase that you want to make or that investment that you want to fund. I mean, it literally touches every aspect of your life. And once you learn how to incorporate this powerful tool into your overall financial strategy, it is going to enhance and accelerate everything that you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And then the opportunities are truly infinite after that, as we found out in just the last few years. So really exciting. We got a lot more to cover, but we'll plan to cover that next week when everybody tunes in. So stay tuned. We plan to do this every week. The Paul and Dave show, Dave and Paul show, whatever you want to call it. But hey, check the show notes. You can contact us. We got an email address there. You can send us your questions. We'll get to them. In fact, we'll probably do an FAQ bonus episode here or there that just answers a lot of questions that people bring in.
Absolutely. Give us a like, give us a 5-star review if you can on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be on all the platforms, whatever platform you're watching us on, YouTube or something, or if you're listening to us on podcast or Stitcher, whatever. There's a bunch of them out there. There's like 20 of them or something, Dave, right?
Yep. 25, I think.
It's insane. Personally, I use YouTube and the podcast app on Apple, and that's all I use. But anyway, appreciate everyone, and looking forward to making more content for you.
Yep. Have a great 2022, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right.
See you,
Dave. I'll talk to you, bud.
All right, bud.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to have a conversation with us to see how you can become your own banker, or if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to tackle on a future episode, please send us an email to davidandpaul@theibcguys.com.
And subscribe and leave us a review if you're on Apple. Follow and leave us a 5-star review if you're on Spotify. And please share this with your friends. We'll see you next week.